Hey YouTube, welcome back to Lucky Man Survival. So today we're going to be doing kind of a pretty cool one for you guys today. We're going to be talking about sighting and rifles. Now obviously in the previous portion of this video you'll have seen that I have done a small diagram for you guys on what the actual readings look like at certain zeros. Today I'm going to be showing you guys, now I'm going to be setting up a 36-yard zero. Now this rifle shoots 5.56 and 2.23, so this one doesn't really have super long distance. Basically, the effective range for it is about 500 yards. So for me, I like to sight in for 36 because you have a really nice grouping of just about that much in difference in height between a 36-yard zero, 200, and 300. Okay, so today I'm going to show you some tricks of the trade, some tools you can use to help you out, and then at the very end, you know, we're going to be discussing how to recenter your zero once you're done. Not all scopes can do it, but for the most part, most of our common ones have no problem. All right, guys. So this is a Western Hunter scope. This is a 1.2 variable optic all the way up to 6, which is perfect for this rifle. And this one is in half M.O.A. So each click equals 1/2 minute of angle. So this one is a really good scope. It's about a $300 scope, nothing too crazy. This one does the height, this one goes left to right. So no problem there. Everyone who shoots scopes basically knows that this does your up and down, this does your left to right. Now this rifle is zeroed in as of right now, but just because it's zeroed in doesn't mean that I can't show you how to work with it, okay? So, alrighty guys. So, for this specific scope, realistically, a 36-yard zero is a really good setup for this because you have really good groupings right around the anywhere from the 0 all the way to 300 yards. So this is a good setup for this rifle. You know, if I was shooting something like the 300 Winchester Magnum or something like that, you know, you'd probably want to go for like a 200-yard zero, something like that. But for this one, we really don't do much range farther than about 300 yards on this, sometimes a little more, but those are pretty easy to adjust for. So, when you are setting up and zeroing a rifle, the first thing you want to make sure you're doing correctly is actually getting the rifle mounted properly. Now, some steps you can take to do this is first, you're going to want to have this scope off entirely. You're going to want to put the bottom part of the lap rings on here and push them forward. This helps mitigate recoil and movement within the scope itself. So you take these bottom halves, put them on there. You're always going to want to make sure that they are measured as far forward as you possibly can, because that's going to give you really good eye relief, especially for when you're setting up and you're actually positioning yourself behind the rifle. Now, another thing you want to do is once you get this all, you know, tightened down right here, then you're going to want to put the scope on there, and you can take the tops and use them as kind of like little stoppers to make sure the scope doesn't fall. And you're going to want to position it back and forth with your face sitting on the cheek well, and really making sure that this magnification and the actual comfort of your eyes are sitting really well. The best way to do it, and I'll show you, so you're going to want to get behind the rifle where you always position. You want to keep your eyes closed and then open one eye. Once you can see down that scope, you have no glint, no black, you know, abyss going on in there. That tells you that you are in a good position for your scope. Alrighty, now if you're seeing black in the corners where it's not perfectly angled, you need to adjust the scope, adjust your cheek wherever you're going to be going, and then go from there. Once you have that position, you're going to tighten these down, and that's when you're going to start doing some things like leveling it out, making sure that everything's center, and then you're going to want to make sure that that crosshair inside is perfectly up and down, parallel. You don't want it to be off to the side or anything like that. Once you have a good base for the scope, then you can start. Now, some tricks of the trade that you can do, especially for a rifle like this, is called bore sighting. So that means you take the bolt out and you can look straight down the barrel. Now, I can't with this on here, but when I do sight it in, I do take this off, and you can look right down the bore. And what you're going to do is you're going to take that bore and you're going to line it up to your target. You should be able to see the target no problem at that distance. And then you're just going to lightly adjust your eyes up towards your scope and your scope and your bore should be sitting on that target. If it's not, you can adjust your scope accordingly until you're basically on the target. What this is going to allow you to do is make sure that you're either hitting paper or hitting your target from this distance, and then you can adjust from there. So once you get the bore lined up and the scope lined up and it's sitting on the target, then you can go ahead and put your bolt in like so, nothing crazy, and then go ahead and load up and take a few shots. What you want to do is try and do groups of 2 or 3. Now what you do is you don't shoot the first shot and then move towards that bullet. What you do is you find a target, you find a spot on the paper or on your target, you take several shots at that, even if you're missing. So if you have a target, you know, and you're aiming at the center and it falls to the left or high and to the right or anything like that, this is going to allow you to know where you're going to make your adjustments from. So what you do is you take those 3 shots and then you adjust your scope accordingly to what you're seeing. So if you're aiming at center and it's up high and to the right, you're going to adjust your elevation up and then to the right. Then you're going to go back to that original target and fire, and it should get you closer to that center mass. And you continue to get that angle right until finally your shot matches your hit. Once you do that, you're going to want to take 2 or 3 more shots just to make sure that everything's centered and you're not jerking the trigger or anything like that. And after that, that's pretty much it. Now, you can use some tools like a bore sight laser, which we do have one of those, so let me grab. Now, these are some tools you can use to help you sight in your rifle. So this is a bore laser sight. It has all the way from .177 size bores and all the way up to, I believe it's 50 BMG on this one specifically. Now these expand out as you tighten them down, and they actually expand and fold out. So each one has a certain size for each different barrel. So this one, for instance, I would use for this one, it gives me anything from a .220 barrel size all the way up to a .310, I believe. So this one isn't super big, but it does expand out pretty nicely. And it's a way for you to line up your bore to your target and make sure that you're getting accurate. Now, the only problem with one of these is, one, it's only really visible up to about 50 yards. So you wouldn't be able to use this for a 200-yard zero. You would be able to do a 50-yard to 200 differential, but you wouldn't be able to actually put the laser out at 200 yards and see it visibly through your scope. So this is really good for close readings like the 36, the 50, even for some people who like to do the 100. That could read pretty well at the 100, but you're probably going to be doing that at night when you have less sun and glare. Now this is something that's really going to be helpful for you when you're sighting in anything past the 36 yards. This is going to be the perfect thing. So this is a rangefinder. So this is the SIG 1500, the Buckmaster's 1500 by SIG. This is a wonderful rangefinder. This one I really like because it changes from meters to yards. So depending on how you read things, if you do a 36 yard sight in, or you do a 36 meter sight in, or if you do a 50 yard or 50 meter, however you read it is how you can actually adjust for the actual distance with this rangefinder. So that's a really nice addition to that. But this is going to allow you to not only check yourself, but if you have a buddy like I do, I have Parker who comes with me whenever I'm sighting and stuff, he can actually sit there and he can use the rangefinder to not only position out distance and when I'm setting up my target, but he can also use this because of the zoom it has to actually tell me if I'm missing low and to the right, high and to the right, whatever it is. He can basically be my spotter. Now you can also use a spotting scope, but a spotting scope is more for when you are shooting at distance and you want someone to be able to really get a nice zoom into your target and see what you're doing. Now, you could use that, it's no problem. But for me, this is a good setup for what we're doing here today. So once you're actually doing the sight in and everything's adjusted, you're going to take your shots. Now, obviously you're going to be, moving your thing around and that's no problem. But once you get to where you want to go, if it's whatever number it's on, with this specific scope, you can just take this little top ring off. And this allows me to take this entire platform off, and I can actually make it to where I can get to my original 0. So I would just position where my 0 is, cap it down, and we're good to go. Now this is going to allow me to, when I'm writing DOP, or data on previous engagements, this is going to allow me to not only make sure that I'm reading at a very simple adjustment, but it's going to allow me to make smaller adjustments from, closer distances. So if I'm shooting at 200 yards, 2 clicks isn't gonna, it's not gonna do anything crazy for me. But if, the scope gets sighted in and I'm sitting at, let's just say 22, and I'm trying to adjust. Now I'm writing DOP with big numbers and stuff like that. It's not too fun. So for me, I like to keep everything sighted in and a 0 on both the elevation and the windage. So with that in mind, once you're getting that all sighted in and everything's good, the best thing you can do is get your original 0 out, and then you can actually get out to a distance that is capable with that 0. So for me, I know that a group between 36 yards and 300 yards, the difference in height is about 6 inches, about the size of a CD. So that's a good thing for someone who's not going to be going out to super long distances. If you're going out in distances, I would probably go towards the 100-yard 0, because that's really easy to read, or the 200, depending on how good you are at that point. But for this one, it's just a 36-yard. Now I'm going to have Parker pan out over there to our target, just to show you that it's not impossible to get a 36-yard in what you're shooting at from this distance. It's very easy to see through the visible eye. But we are shooting at a steel target right out here. All right, guys, so we are panned out now at the 36-yard. So as you can see, it's really not far away from us. I mean, I can probably throw a rock at it from here, but this is going to allow me to make my shots, and I can see them. I can use my scope as a nice set of binoculars to make sure my hits are getting accurate. And we're just going to go ahead and place it. So now I've already done my adjustments, like everything I said, and we're going to take some shots. So as you can see, once you have something sighted in, you shouldn't have any problem getting those consistent hits. For me, my grouping is what I like to call good enough. It's right around the size of about $50 from this distance. So I know that once I'm sighted in, I can go out to distance and I'm going to be in a nice little group. But the beauty of sighting in a rifle, especially with something like this or like a Leopold or a Vortex, once you do it properly and get that positioned in, you get it all tightened down and everything, use a blue Loctite. Do not use red Loctite when you are actually tightening everything down, because then you will need heat to release that red Loctite later. Blue Loctite's much easier. You just need torque to get it done. But the great thing about it is if you do it correctly, you do the mounting correctly, and you do the 0 correctly, it will stay and hold at 0 basically forever. It will outlast you if you do it properly. But for some people, they may allow their scopes to get loose. Maybe they don't get it mounted properly. Now, I am going to let everyone know that one thing that you should do that would really help you out is if you are having problems with zeroing your optic at distances, even like this, and they're not consistent, you may want to go to your local gunsmith or something and go and get your rings lapped, because sometimes that can be a problem with cheaper rings, especially on scopes that you get from the factory. If they're not $1,200 scopes, you may not have the best rings, and that can really change your leveling of the actual scope itself, which can affect your accuracy. So I would recommend when you're doing this, make sure that you are sighting in and zeroing specifically for what you are going to be using the rifle for. If you're going to be doing long range, you might want to do a 200-yard zero. If you're doing, between 100 and 300 like I am, you're going to want to try and do something like the 36 or the 50. But as we showed in the diagram before, it's all about how you feel like doing it. Now, just remember, once you have everything sighted in and everything, you will want to go out and to make yourself, make your life a little easier, is you're going to want to go out and you're going to go and create a dope sheet. It's very simple to create, and you just basically take a pad, pen, and you're going to write out the information that you are seeing when you are taking shots. So if you're shooting at 36 yards and it's a perfect zero, you're going to put 36 yards equals 0. And then say if you go out to 100 yards and you want to get precise adjustments, you can go out and you can adjust as you shoot and see how many minutes of angle or mils that you're using that are actually adjusting. And that's basically what you write out. That way, next time you come out to the range, instead of having to guess every time, you take the data on previous engagement, which is what DOPE stands for, and you're going to use that to assist you in taking your shots. That means you're able to save a little bit on ammo, and you have kind of a nice basis to start off of. Once you've been shooting for a long time, dope becomes natural to you, remembering, okay, for 700 yards, I need to do, 15 clicks, and that's going to get me perfect at 700 yards. For some people, it's all about actually reading their dials. So for someone who shoots 1,000 yards, they're going to make sure that they're using precise clicks, that they're using exactly what their data reads, because that is going to assist them in getting more accurate shots. Now me, I don't really shoot out to 1,000 yards very often, and I'm not very good at it, and I'll be honest. I'm a good solid 700-yard guy. So for me, when I'm shooting out at long distances like that, now I have to create dope for that moment. But for someone who shoots coyotes, or maybe goes deer hunting and shoots at 200 yards all the time, knowing what your 200 yard is going to be great for you to sight in that rifle. But that's all we have for you today. And like I said, just remember some of the key points. Make sure that you put your optic on properly. That is probably the one thing that will screw you up the most in the future, is actually not having your scope mounted properly. Second thing is this: once you are going out to the range, make sure you know what kind of zero you want and what you're going to be capable of doing and why you're going to want to do that. Third is making sure that you begin a dope sheet. You can look them up on YouTube on how to create them. It's very easy. I'm going to recommend Ryan Kleckner's channel. He is fantastic. I absolutely love him. Him and John Lovell did an entire series on setting up dope and then long range shooting. You can check that out as well. But learning how to create a dope sheet is going to really help you in the long run. And the last thing I'm going to say is this: make sure that whatever you are doing with your rifle, that you have got the right scope for it. I see guys all the time who will get a 20 magnification scope for a rifle that won't even shoot past 300 yards. You don't need it. The less magnification is going to allow you to have a better field of view. So make sure that you're getting the rifle or the scope that fits the rifle. Don't try and get a rifle that fits the scope. You want to really make sure that each scope is good for the rifle that you're going to be using. So a good example is some on the rifles we have over there. Those go up to 9 magnification, 12 magnification, but those rifles are capable of shooting out to 1,000 yards and plus. This one, on the other hand, it's basically set capable at about 500 yards. So I'm not going to want to take a scope off of one of those and put it on this guy, because realistically that's going to be too much bang for this buck. So you really want to make sure when you're actually doing stuff like this is you're getting an optic that fits the rifle and its capability, which will allow you to make better shots. And another thing is this is a $500 rifle. That's a $500 scope. Some people say get a scope the same price as your rifle. I would disagree a little bit on that, because when it comes to getting a certain scope, is if the rifle doesn't have the capability, then getting a scope that has ultra capability, it's just going to be a crutch. You really want something that's going to work for you every time, and it's going to do its job without you having to work too hard on magnification. You're going to be focusing on too much stuff. All right, guys. Well, that's going to be all for this video. But if you guys like this video, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. And remember, death is the rule, but survival is the exception. We'll catch you guys next time.